Hey my good friend, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Today we are test driving the 2022 Hyundai Kona EV, the all-electric version of the very popular compact crossover SUV. So we're going to do a walk around, show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a drive, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think. The vehicle we're testing here today is a fully loaded 2022 Hyundai Kona Electric Limited. As tested, our price is just under $44,000, just by a few bucks. For 2022, Hyundai gave the Kona a styling refresh on all of the models. Now the EV looks very much like any other Hyundai Kona, but there are some major stylistic differences, and you can see that right up front. It has a unique front fascia. No big grills there to cool a gasoline engine. And on this one, we have LED headlights. Now, the headlights themselves aren't the ones at the top. Those are the daytime signature lights. No, down below in what looks like in the bumper to be fog lights, those are actually the headlights. LED on this. If you step down into the SEL, those are halogen. The wheels on this one are 17-inch, and as you can see, they have a very flat aerodynamic design. And when it comes to charging, the charging port is right here at the front. Little door pops open and it's located there in the nose. Now, I happen to love this location because if there's a charging station at the end of a parking space, you can pull straight in and plug it in. If it's your garage, same thing. You don't have to back it in or get into some strange position so that you can reach where your charging port is. Now, to charge this battery takes about 9 hours on a level 2 240 volt charger. If you go up to a level 3 fast charger, which this offers capability for, you can charge up to 80% in just under an hour. The battery that we're charging on the Kona Electric is actually located under the floor of the passenger compartment. If you look under there, you can see it sort of sticking down just a little bit, an extruded aluminum casing and frame that is pretty sturdy. This is a 64 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery. And thus, this is not really an off-roading type SUV, as you don't want to be going out there and driving over rocks and boulders and through streams and dragging that battery over all of that. Coming around to the rear three-quarter view, looks very much like most other Hyundai Konas out there, with the body color wheel arch openings. I think it has a little bit of a cleaner look. You can see on the back deck lid the electric logo that tells people what you've got. Looking up at the top of the roof, I like the way the Hyundai Kona roofline features that built-in integrated spoiler. It looks natural, not added on at all. And going down to the rear bumper, you can see that because we are in an electric vehicle, there's no exhaust tips, no pronounced performance exhaust finishers, anything like that. This is a very clean design. The interior of the Kona Electric is very much like the regular Kona gas model. Because we are in the Limited, there's a lot of features here, technical and comfort. I'm sitting on leather seats to start with. Now, they are very comfortable. This is an 8-way power seat for the driver. It is manual for the passenger, but it is heated and ventilated. Leather wrapped steering wheel in front of me. These actually have paddle shifters on them, but they're not shifters because we don't have a transmission, so to speak. These are actually controlling the regenerative braking. That's kind of cool to be able to control how this thing regenerative brakes on the fly. Looking ahead, the instrument cluster on this is a full-size digital cluster, fully customizable, and that can display all sorts of different information. As you can see, it's just got the basics on there for me. And the center stack, very simply laid out. Big infotainment screen here at the top with hard controls, vents, HVAC down in the center. And then the rest of the console is what is really unique to the electric from the gas model. This is what they call a flying bridge center console design. As you can see, you look underneath of it, there's actually storage down there. You can put a purse, you can put snacks, whatever you're doing on a road trip perhaps. There's also connection ports down there for power. Here in the center, there's a cubby. You can put your phone down there. This one has a wireless charger, also a USB port down there. Cup holders off to the side, and here the gear selector, which is push button. Behind that are controls for your heated and ventilated seats, as well as the auto hold drive mode and some of those things. Storage here actually pretty generous. This is a little bit larger than a square Kleenex box. Kleenex didn't pay for that. People know what that is. The back seat is not going to be mistaken for anything but the back seat in a compact crossover. As you can see, I am packaged in here, right? Now, I'm about 5'9" with my boots on. These seats are set for me. You can see I've got not quite an inch of knee room here. In fact, if I move them just the right way, they're brushing the backs of these seats, and they're not shaped in such a way where they have an indentation. The other thing you might notice is that my seating position is pretty low here. My knees are perched up, and actually that's not so much because the seating position is low, it's because the floor is higher, right? They have designed this to have a big battery underneath this floor, so this floor cannot be as low as it might otherwise be. So thus, up come my legs. Oddly enough, it's not as uncomfortable as it might look. These seats, while firm, do have some good side support, so I feel like I'm held a little bit. I'm not trying to find a way to hold myself up if I'm riding back here with a bumpy ride. When it comes to amenities, we don't have a lot of things going on back here in spite of the price. There is a mat pocket on the back of the passenger seat, and at the back of the console you will find no vents, which here in Arizona can be a pretty big deal in the summertime. There is a USB port down there, however. In this seat we do have a fold down armrest. Nice feature. Now this does seat 5, so this is 3 across. These seats do fold down in a 60-40 split. Looking at the cargo area back there, pretty generous for a vehicle of this size. And underneath that floor, you're not going to find a spare tire here, but you will find an inflator kit, and also stored under there is the home charger that allows you to plug this into a 110 outlet if you need to do a slow charge in a pinch. I'm pretty impressed with this interior. You can tell we are sitting in what is a car that starts down in the lower 20,000s range in the gas model. You do have a lot of hard plastic here and there. This is not what we might call a premium interior outside of all of the feature content and the leather seating that we have on the limited trim grade. Beyond those things, it's a pretty basic economy car interior, but the design is very good. It's very functional, very versatile, and there's a lot of storage in here, let alone utility. So this interior gets 4 out of 5 stars. When it comes to the human-machine interface, also known as infotainment, what we have here is the top of the line in the Limited. This is a 10.25-inch touchscreen. This has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, but it is wired connection here. Oddly enough, if you get down into the lower trim grade, it has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But I like the fact that they've given us hard controls, tuning, and volume, along with buttons to call up all of the most common things you're going to do, so you don't have to hunt and peck through those menus to get your most commonly used things. The sound is very good, Harman Kardon audio, very hard to beat. There are a few things that I'm not really jazzed about. It is missing a 360-degree camera for this price range, and it home screens all the time. Every time you start the car up, you have to navigate back to where you were last time you were in the car. I wish it would stay there, but those are just little things. Overall, this is one of the best systems in the business when it comes to ease and use and the graphics, visibility, audio quality, very good, but it's missing a few things. It's missing a 360-degree camera at this price range, and at this price range, it also really should have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, just like the base model, oddly enough. So this system, while quite good, is just missing a few things. It gets 4 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, now we are finally ready to take a drive. And so the first thing we need to talk about is what is under the hood. Well, under the hood is an electric motor, and the electric motor here puts out 201 horsepower, 291 pound-feet of torque. That is pretty healthy for one of the more affordable electric cars on the market. A lot of cars in this class tend to be well under 200 horsepower. The battery range is 258 miles, which is also a pretty healthy number in this class. And as we're sitting here at the stoplight, one thing you might notice is there's a little whir. I don't know if you can hear that on the audio, but it's the fake electric sound that is always played through a speaker for the benefit of pedestrians out there, so that they know you're coming if you're in a parking lot or something like that. And that sound gradually increases when we take off, and then once we get moving, it eventually goes away. But it's kind of cute. So the question I always like to ask is, how does it go? Woo! Woo! Oh, torque steer. Okay. So 201 horsepower and 291 pound-feet of torque in a little front-wheel drive car with tires that are really designed to be for fuel efficiency rather than grip is a lot. which is to say this has torque steer, mad torque steer. So basically what that means is if you're stomping on the throttle and you want to go fast, that's fine, it'll go fast, but you better be holding onto the steering wheel because this wants to go all wobbly on you. It's just something that front wheel drive cars have always had when they've had torque, and this one does. So I'm pretty impressed with the amount of power that this has, even though it does overcome the chassis just a little bit. Driving around town, we're sitting here at a stoplight now. I found it to be pretty impressive in its response. Now I'm in sport mode, so it does pull out smartly into traffic. And there is a little bit of electric sound from this motor, but it's not super loud like I have found it in other electric cars. Now this does have 3 distinct drive modes: Eco, Normal, and Sport. Now if I go down here and I put this in Eco, it drives completely different. It feels like it's got a house attached to it, but that does help you get better range. And the reason why is because the regenerative braking is a lot stronger. One of the ways that's captured is this has, very similar to what Chevrolet has in the Bolt with a 1-pedal driving. When you let off the pedal, you get strong regenerative braking, which is almost like stepping on the brakes, and that's putting power back to the battery. In fact, it's so strong that the brake lights actually come on when you let off the throttle all the way. And so I'm driving up here to a little bit of a curve. I let off the power pedal and I get some pretty strong braking. It's almost as if I've laid into the brakes. And that's why the Eco mode really helps you with that range, because you get very strong regenerative braking with the 1-pedal action. So as a result, keeping it on Eco most of this week, I have found that getting good range in this car has been pretty easy. Not once have I thought, wow, this thing's draining the battery fast. So I'm very impressed with this powertrain. It's very easy to drive around town, not too noisy, and it's got well more than enough power. This powertrain gets 5 out of 5 stars. On the topic of ride, drive, and handling, I have to say I'm pretty impressed with this car this week. Electric cars always present a bit of a challenge for automakers because they have to tune the suspension to really handle a lot of weight. A lot of electric cars weigh upwards of 4,000 or 5,000 pounds, sometimes more, because of all that battery. And here we have a car that weighs just under 4,000 pounds. And so they haven't had to go to a lot of gymnastics, so to speak, to get this thing to handle properly. And so the ride quality is actually pretty good. And so when you go around curves and corners, it tends to be a little bit more responsive than some of the heavier cars without having to have a rock hard suspension. And since we've gone over a few, the speed humps, which is a test I always like to do on cars to see how well it rolls over these ubiquitous speed humps here in my neighborhoods around Phoenix, this performs very well. I don't get any crashing in the suspension on the rebound, no banging, crashing, no harshness. It's very well tuned. So overall, I'm very impressed with this chassis. It handles very much in a refined way. It's got a quiet ride, and the ride isn't too firm like a lot of electric cars. Whew. This chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. You know, my biggest takeaway from driving this car this week is the fact that this is an electric car that feels very mainstream, and part of that's because this is a car that was designed and built to be offered as a gasoline model and also an electric. And Hyundai's done a good job of making this not a compromise. This is an electric car that's every bit as competitive with the vehicles it competes against as any other electric. A lot of times when you have a car that's both electric and gas that can be offered as both, there's a compromise someplace. It's not the best of either worlds. But here, when you look at the competition like the Bolt, the Bolt EUV, maybe the Nissan Leaf, those are cars that this performs and competes very well against. And in the case of the Chevrolet Bolts, it's right in the sweet spot. Pricing, horsepower, range, very competitive there and about the same size. So when I look at value here, I look at how it competes. I look at warranty, quality. This is an EV that you can buy and not feel like you're being the first to buy the new brand and not sure how that's going to work out. You know, you can go to the Hyundai dealer with this and get it worked on and everything's going to go smoothly. So I put value at 5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review. Very good. So there you go. I invite you to see our latest video right there. Follow us on social media, links are down below, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there. Either way, Stay tuned.